In this video, we are going to talk all about snacking. The Snack Attack Solutions video, walking you through how to stop snacking and how to stay on track. It's going to be a good one, so you're going to want to stick around till the end. And before we get into it, please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, drop a thumbs up on this video, leave a comment, turn notifications on so you can know when my videos come out, because that's helpful. Also, look, we're going to be talking a lot about nutrition stuff, and particularly what we want to focus on if we're trying to lose weight. Now, if you're struggling with weight loss, you don't even know where to get started, you can click below and literally I have a free weight loss calculator. You can get started with that, or you could just click again and you could get my ultimate fat loss guide. I walk you through every step that I use with all of my clients who have seen amazing results, and it's absolutely free. So just click it. What do you have to lose? When it comes to snacking, there's a big thing here. I guess I should cover the two most important things that if everyone was able to do it, I would be out of a job. Actually, yeah, you would need to watch this video in the first place. So we're going to divide it into skills, right? There are two skills that everyone needs to have, and a lot of people struggle with this. Now, number one is what needs to happen during a meal. During a meal, you need to notice when you're full and stop eating, right? Easier said than done. Like to notice when you're full and stop eating. A lot of us have a hard time leaving food on a plate or slowing down because food is so delicious, right? So that's number one. During meals, you have to slow down and recognize when you're getting full and stop eating. The second thing we have to do is between meals. Between meals, you need to notice when you're hungry or be able to recognize when you're having a craving. So being able to distinguish hunger versus any emotion versus boredom versus being tired, right? So that's where we're kind of going to stick. We're going to stick between meals right now. That's what this whole video is going to be about, because that's where snacking happens a lot. Now, there are a couple ways that you can improve the snacking thing, but I have to get this out of the way right off the bat. I had put up a video on TikTok a couple days ago, and it pissed some people off. Like, it straight up pissed people off. And the title of the video was "Stop Eating All the Time Because You Think You're Hungry." Because chances are you're not actually hungry. And it upset a lot of people because, quite frankly, it triggered them. It hit a nerve. And the reason why is because oftentimes we try to look for other reasons why something's not working, right? Other than the obvious one. So I'm going to establish this. The only way you can lose weight is if you are in a calorie deficit. Now, a calorie deficit just means you're consuming less calories than you need to maintain your current body weight. That's it. To gain weight, you have to eat in a calorie surplus, which means you are eating above what you need to maintain your current body weight. Now, it doesn't boil down to single days, right? That'd be silly. No. It's what you're doing over the time period that you are trying to lose weight, gain weight, maintain weight, right? It's all about trends. It's what you're doing consistently. So if you're consistently eating in a calorie surplus, you're going to gain weight. If you are consistently eating at maintenance, you're going to stay the exact same. If you are consistently in your calorie deficit, you will lose weight. It does not matter. That's just what it has to be. We can get into all sorts of other things of like, well, if you get more active during, yes, if you're more active and you are someone who moves your body a lot during the day, you technically are using more energy to do that, which means you could be in a calorie deficit doing that, right? That's why a lot of individuals who just start doing more walking, if they're overweight, can lose weight because they're actually doing something. But for the most part, we can't out exercise our nutrition because exercise is such a small portion of our day, right? Now, the thing that upset someone from this video was they brought up, well, you don't understand because starvation mode. Starvation mode, like there are people who are hungry, but they just can't lose weight. Like it's a thing. Like you're hungry all the time because, right? Starvation mode is not a thing. It's not real. It's not. Right? It's not real. I will explain this to you. Let's use the example of someone who's homeless. If someone is homeless, they're not really eating a lot. Maybe they're drinking and smoking cigarettes. Like that's their literally to help curb their hunger, right? Maybe that's one of the things they do. They're not going to be overweight. They're going to be rail thin. If the theory of starvation mode was really a thing, they would be overweight. They wouldn't lose weight at all, right? That's the whole idea. Or that the or someone can really grab onto the idea that your metabolism slows down when you lose weight. That's 100% right. Your metabolism does slow down when you lose weight, and that's normal. Metabolic adaptation. It slows down because you don't require as much energy because you are getting leaner. That, that's it. Your body adapts. And guess what? When you stop your diet and you gain weight back, it goes back to what it was doing before. That's why we've been able to survive for hundreds upon hundreds of years through different body set. Literally, metabolism is able to adapt. And also, you will lose weight if you're in a calorie deficit. Now, you might be saying, well, I'm definitely in a calorie deficit, but I'm not losing any weight. No, you're not. You're not. I don't mean to come off harsh because trust me when I say this, I work with so many individuals who struggle with their weight and who struggle with their relationship with food. So it's not me trying to be rude in saying that, like, no, you're wrong. It's just me saying that the facts are the facts. You can't really argue with facts. And in truth, when you look at this and think about this, here's what you can ask yourself. If you're truly in a calorie deficit, and I ask you, how often are you hungry? Or are you hungry? And your answer is, I'm never hungry. And you're not in a calorie deficit. If you answer me that, I'm hungry sometimes, like you're in a calorie deficit. That's what it is. If you are never hungry, you are not in a calorie deficit. Just it, because you naturally have to reduce the amount you're eating in order to be able to lose that weight. Now, if we dive in a little bit more, like a little bit more to this, we can look at where these sorts of things happen, right? And it's because we get hungry and then we snack on things. We're not tracking those things, right? Little bites and nibbles of food, right? They count. Uh, my son, he had leftover pancakes, and I took a little bite of it. Well, if I did that consistently throughout the day, took bites of my son's food, those are calories. They don't disappear, right? When you're stressed at work and you walk past your coworker's desk and they have M&Ms out, and you grab a handful and stick them in your mouth, those count, right? Every bite, nibble, whatever, it counts. Liquid calories, they count. Creamers in your coffee, they count, right? These oils that you cook with, like all of these things, they count, but sometimes we're not aware of it or we forget about it. And that takes you out of your calorie deficit. That could be what's happening. But what we're going to talk about right now is what is most likely happening. Because let's say you are aware of those things and you're working on it, right? The other thing that we have to distinguish is, well, you probably don't know what the fuck it is to be hungry, because there's a lot of things that go into that. Number one, you might be a person who is nervous about being hungry, right? You're uncomfortable with being hungry, and you think something's going to be wrong if you're hungry. And there's a couple reasons this can happen. A lot of the time when I'm working with someone and that is a fear, it's because food is a comfort. Well, what am I going to do if I don't have that full feeling, like that overly full feeling? Because you now associate that feeling with being safe. You associate that feeling with being comforted, right? Like I've had folks who are like, oh, it's not normal to feel like you want to just like throw everything up after you eat it because you eat so much, right? So, what we're trying to actually work toward is noticing when you're about 80% full and you stop eating. And that's hard to do because you have to slow down, right? So that's a part of it. You have to actually be okay with being a little bit hungry, right? It's not the end of the world, right? So a skill you could practice if you notice that, you know, I'm not sure what it's like to feel hungry. I don't even know what that feels like. A skill you could practice is noticing hunger 30 minutes before a meal. Like if you set a timer on your phone for 30 minutes before you're supposed to eat your lunch or your dinner or your breakfast, just check in, see how you're actually feeling. Like, what are you actually feeling? If you want to go a step further, we can recognize what hunger actually is. Hunger is a hollow feeling in your stomach. It increases over time, and it's for a meal. It's not for a fucking cookie or a piece of cake, a brownie. Those things are amazing, and I am not saying that they are bad. No, they can work within your nutrition plan. They're delicious. But if that's what you're craving, you're having a craving. A craving and hunger are two different things. We'll talk more about a craving in a second, but hunger, that's the big thing here. Like, it's hollow. It's only going to get worse. Like, you're only going to feel it more and more and more. It's not going to go away. And it's for a meal. It's for an apple. An apple sounds delicious, right? Uh, Tacos and and baked bean and like all that sounds delicious, right? But if you're like, nah, I just want a piece of cake, it's definitely a craving. But cravings are normal, right? They're normal. They're never going to go away. But it's learning how to coexist with them. And that's the tricky thing. So how can we make it so that we're a little more aware? Well, between meals, if you try to have a meal every 4 to 6 hours, you're going to be less likely to snack as much, especially if those meals contain like a lean source of protein, right? So you can check out that fat loss guide. It talks all about protein and how much you should be having and how to figure that out and how to know your calories, all this stuff. But I'm just going to say, if you have at least, on a safe, like at least 30 to 40 grams of protein on your plate, you're not going to be as hungry between meals. Protein is one of those things that take a while to digest. It leaves you feeling full. It's not as expensive calorically because there's only 4 calories per single gram, right? Also, having fruits and vegetables on your plate, fiber, right? Those things again can help keep you full between meals because fiber slows blood sugar spikes. So that's good. So it stabilizes blood sugar, but it also takes a while for you to digest it. So having fiber, having protein at each meal is going to be really helpful. And just making sure that it's a balanced plate, like working up to like at least 50% fruits or veggies on your plate, that's good. Having at least 25% protein, 25% carb, 1 to 2 thumb lengths of fat, like that's a pretty base balanced plate. And if you're having that, then you're good. Like if you finish your plate, great. If you leave a little on your plate because you notice you're getting full, you stop, great. Then what you do is you wait 4 to 6 hours and you have your next meal. But if you're waiting longer than 4 to 6 hours, a snack attack is more likely to happen in that scenario, right? A snack attack can happen and it's normal because you're very hungry. And maybe that's when you go and raid the snack cabinet or grab those M&Ms off someone's desk. And I don't blame you because in that case, you really are hungry. So what can you do? Well, you can use something called a deliberate snack. A deliberate snack is really freaking helpful. Like a deliberate snack is taking protein and pairing it with either a carb or a fat. I like to pair a protein with a fiber just because it keeps you full longer. So I'll give you some examples that my clients like to use. These are things I like to use, right? So number one would be like a protein shake. A protein shake with a piece of fruit. That'll keep you full for a while. You could even do 2 scoops of protein, which could be for like 40 grams of protein, and they have a piece of fruit. Get some carbs in there, some fiber in there, slow digesting things. That's a deliberate snack. It's not meant to be a meal replacement. What it's meant to be is to help extend the amount of time you can go between meals. So you're a little more comfortable and you're not ravenous by the time you get to your next meal. Another example would be like something like one of those zero fat Greek yogurt cups and some fruit on top. Another example could be like um, a banana with some peanut butter, right? You could do cheese with fruit. You could do right. I'm just naming random things. It doesn't really matter. What matters is you're getting your protein and either carb or fat. That's going to be more of a deliberate snack, and you're also being intentional about it. It's not that you're going and raiding the pantry or just going to the vending machine. You know when your day is going to have this bigger gap. Like you know your work schedule, hopefully, there are certain situations where maybe you don't, but in that case, you could still have a plan where you have like one of those pre-made protein shakes in your bag. Like, I don't know what my schedule is going to be like. Let me just pack one of these deliberate snacks. Let me know that I'm actually planning it. A planned deliberate snack is different than mindless snacking, which is what a snack attack is. A planned deliberate snack is going to help you get closer to your goal, help you stay full between meals, keep you energized, and cut back on randomized snacking. Okay. So we kind of check the category of like, okay, this person clearly knows when they're hungry. They know what that feeling is. They're okay with experiencing that feeling. They've tried it and they can plan ahead. They could do a deliberate snack, right? Now, here's the key to stop snacking and stay on track because we're going to go back to noticing what hunger is, right? It's number one, it's a hollow feeling in your stomach. Number two, it only increases over time. And number three, it's for a meal, not cake. If you're experiencing the cake thing, we call that a craving. A craving is not a hollow feeling in your stomach. It can literally start anywhere in the body. It could be feeling a little tired. It could be being achy. It could be like falling asleep in your chair, right? There are all these different things. So that's that. That's not hunger. That's just something else going on. Number two, it doesn't increase over time. It comes and goes in a wave. It doesn't increase over time. And that eventually, the longer you wait, it eventually goes away. I know that's the hardest part, right? Because oftentimes you'll have that feeling and maybe you do wait, but you wait while staring at the thing that you want to eat, the thing that you're craving. Well, that's a losing game. Look, I'm sober. I'm an alcoholic. That would be like me standing in a bar when I'm having a craving for a beer and expecting something bad not to happen, right? It just doesn't work that way. You have other skills to use, right? I have other skills to use. But the same thing goes with this. You gotta get engaged with what's going on. You can't just stand there and stare at things, and we'll talk about that more in a second. The final part of this is you're not hungry for a meal, you're hungry for that sweet thing, right? That thing that you're craving, whatever it might be. So we've established you're having a craving. Well, now comes the thing that you have to do. You have to notice this craving and check in with yourself. Now, we'll put this under the category of probably emotional eating or stress eating. It depends, whatever you want to label it as. But that's usually what it is. It's some sort of coping mechanism that you've developed over time. And for some people, food has been their safety for as long as they can remember. Food has been the thing you found when your parents were fighting when you were a kid. Food has been the thing you've gone to when you've had a bad breakup, when you've had loss, when you've had happy times, right? Food can be so many different things. Someone who's an emotional eater isn't just eating because they're sad, they're eating because of their emotions, which there are so many different emotions. And it becomes really a challenge because with food, you got to eat food to live. Like like emotional eating, it's a pattern that you have to break, but you have to eat every single day. You know, it's different with being an alcoholic. I don't need to drink alcohol to live. I don't. But food, that's a different thing. That's where we have to understand that everyone's going to have a different journey with this. You're going to have a different journey with this. But what we need to do is you need to identify with those, what we could call technically a trigger, but we need to understand that hunger, we already know what that is. A craving, okay, a craving. Well, cravings aren't random. They're there for a reason. It could be that you're tired, right? So my wife and I were expecting our next kiddo in May. Our son is almost 4. I'm about to have no fucking sleep again. Like, that's just what it's going to be. I'm going to have a toddler who sometimes randomly comes into our room at 3 a.m. And I'm going to have a newborn who just fucking probably won't sleep. I'm going to get like 3 hours of sleep. That's just worst case scenario, probably reality. And I'm going to be fucking hungry. Like, I'm going to be hungry throughout the day because I'm exhausted. That's just what that feels like. I get hungry when I'm tired. The later you stay up, the greater the likelihood of you snacking on things because you're trying to stay awake. And you go for the highly palatable things, the salty and the sweet and the right. You go for the mixture of carbs and fat because we're trying to have energy to stay awake. That's just what it is, right? But if you can notice that, best bet is to turn lights off, turn screens off, and go to bed. It's not going to be an option for everyone. But if you can recognize that that's what's happening, having one of those deliberate snacks will help you satisfy your hunger, craving, and help you recognize you're getting full more easily. Yeah? So maybe it's you're exhausted. Maybe you're bored. Maybe every day at work, when 2:00, 2:30 comes around, and you've been working and staring at your screen, and you've just been working on the same report this whole time, you usually go and you get a little snacky and grab a donut from the break room. You're not even hungry. Lunch was at 1:00. It's 2:15. You're not even hungry, but you go and do that. That is a little bit of emotional regulation. Trying to get past being bored, right? And then the holy grail of them all, you have an argument with a loved one, right? A big, heavy argument. Come home, you're angry after this talk, whatever it might be, and you go into the pantry and you grab a couple things, even though you're not actually hungry. So here's the deal. When it comes to stress eating or emotional eating, you have full permission to do it. You do. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say you can't do it. That's not fucking productive at all. Sitting here and telling someone you can't do that, that's not going to help you. Not even close. What will help you is playing detective. Putting your detective hat on and being like, okay, this happened. Why did this happen? What can I do differently? There's this idea of an exercise called the break the chain exercise. If you think about a link of chains, it has to start somewhere, right? So yes, you emotionally ate and you just ate like 2 bags of chips. You don't know why you ate it. Well, there's clearly a fucking reason why you ate it. So what you have to do is stop, notice a name. You have to stop and realize, go back to what you were doing right before you ate. What happened right before you ate? That's where it is. What was I doing that led to this? If I do this, then this is going to happen. What was it? Was it that hard conversation? Was it that you were really bored? Were you just really happy? Like, it's okay. You're not bad for having emotions, for having these feelings, for any of it. But we need to work through it to figure out how I can get back into control. How can I stay on track? You get a pass. If you emotionally eat, you get a pass. But you have to fucking be productive about it. You have to use that and figure out why it happened. Because you want to be in the driver's seat. You don't want to feel like you have no control, no self awareness. No, you want to be in the driver's seat. So you have to look at it that way. What can I do differently? What can I do to get me where I want to go? Okay, I'm going to notice what I was feeling before I ate. And I know it might sound woo-woo, but you really got to notice it. Notice it every time it happens and name it. Every day at 3:15 when I get off work, I'm so fucking tired. I always have X or Y, right? Because now that you've noticed the triggers, the series of events, what emotion you're having, how you're choosing to deal with it, you have more ability to make a different choice, right? So what is that choice? Um, you could technically call it like a 5-minute action. You could call it a tiny habit. You could call it what I like to call it is obstacle planning. Obstacle planning means, okay, I know this thing is going to happen again, right? Stress eating, emotional eating, snacking, mindless snacking, it happens pretty damn predictably, even though it's mindless, right? It happens. So if that happens, if we notice these trends and we notice these patterns, if blank happens, then I will blank. If then. If then statements are very powerful because it lets you know, okay, I have a game plan. I have something else I can try to do, right? That's obstacle planning. It'd be very different if I gave you a set of rules. All right, you're never going to do X, you're never going to do Y. Chances are you're still going to do X and Y, whatever they might be. But if I say, okay, when this happens, what are some options of things that you can actually do? It's up to you to figure that out. I can't give it to you. I can give you examples, right? I'll give you an example. Um, let's go back to the person who at 3:15 they always come home, they're always exhausted, and they just go and grab something sweet. Okay, if I come home and I'm having a craving, a sweet craving, I will then I will go for a 10-minute walk. Okay. If I come home and I notice I'm having a sweet craving, then I will call a friend. If I come home and I notice I'm having a sweet craving, then I will listen to an audiobook. Right there, these are different things. They're forms of self-care that you can do for yourself. Why they really matter is because remember how earlier I talked about like taking 10 to 15 minutes to let the craving pass, right? Waiting 10 to 15 minutes. I brought that up and I said you couldn't just stare at the stuff because if you stare at it, you're not going to get through it. You're not going to get past it because you're just going to keep coming back to it. What really needs to happen is you need to get involved with what's going on right now. What's happening right now? Not what's happening in the future, not what's happened in the past, what's happening right now, here in the present moment. And that's really hard to do because half the time that's why you're snacking on something to try and avoid whatever's coming up. But what needs to happen is we have to get to a level of radical acceptance. Radical acceptance is this idea that it is what it is. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. That's really challenging to get to. It's really advanced to get there too. It's some advanced mental gymnastics. But what you can do is do something that gets you involved in the here and now, right? Listening to an audiobook, suddenly I'm paying attention to the audiobook. I'm listening to the character development, the plot. I'm not thinking about the argument I had earlier or the craving I'm experiencing. You're not shoving those things down. What you're doing is you're letting them just exist because it is what it is. And in time, it passes like all emotions. You're not going to be angry forever, even though it feels like that when you are angry, right? Just like you're not going to be happy forever. Those are unrealistic things. You have to know at this point that feelings come and go, even when you're experiencing it, it feels like it's going to last forever. It doesn't. And the more you can switch that and remember that by using some of these tools, the more you can get to that radical acceptance of the here and now, right? Another example would be going for the 10-minute walk, grabbing a drink of water. Those aren't things to make you ignore the feeling, to ignore what's going on. They're things that let you be present with those things while the emotional wave goes. If you can surf the urge, like urge surfing, like you can experience and witness and recognize the feelings that are coming on and make other decisions, Well, eventually you reprogram it to understand, oh no, I'm bored right now. Let me do X or Y. It takes practice, right? That's why I would suggest coming up with like 3 to 5 if then statements for yourself. Notice those patterns, come up with those if then statements, right? That's the really big thing here. You have to notice those patterns and come up with statements. Now that we've covered, okay, now we know what the stress eating emotionally, what I can do in that situation. That's gonna really truly cut back on mindless snacking, being aware, eating a meal every 4 to 6 hours, waiting 10 to 15 minutes before snacking, slowing down and finishing your meal when you're 80% full. Like those things are going to help you. But if I wanted to list out practical things that you can add right now that you could do to make sure that you're actually not hungry between meals, because that's also going to help you cut down on snacking, it would be this in order. One, I would make sure that every meal had a lean source of protein. Doesn't matter if you're plant based, whatever it is, just have a lean source of protein. Again, in my fat loss guide, I have a whole protein list that you can check out, tons of different options there. But you're going to want to make sure you're hitting at least 30 to 40 grams of protein at each meal. It sounds crazy hard, but it's actually not that hard to do. Number two, I would make sure to hit fiber at each meal. Now, fiber comes in many different forms. You get it from fruits, you get it from vegetables, you get it from whole grains, you get it wherever you want to come from. Fiber is awesome. Fibrous foods tend to be lower in calorie, which is also a benefit. You could think of it this way: for every 1,000 calories, you want to have at least 14 grams of fiber in your nutrition. For women, on average, anywhere from uh, like about 20 to 25 grams of fiber. For men, it's about 35 to 38 grams of fiber on average. Like just ballpark it, but you want to try to hit that. Hitting that will help you stay full between meals. It's a biggie. There's also tons of health benefits too. Number three, I would make sure that I'm having a meal every 4 to 6 hours. Like that, don't skip meals. You could. For people who tend to have this hard time with mindless snacking, if you're fasting, you're probably still going to have a harder time with fasting because you're literally going to be hungrier. So, what I recommend, just take your calendar out, your iCal or your Google Calendar, and literally schedule in breakfast, lunch, dinner, and schedule in your deliberate snack. If you plan these things, it becomes easier for you to actually follow through on them. I know that sounds fucking groundbreaking, but that's true. You have to plan these things if you want to follow through on them. Okay? Okay. So I would hit lean source of protein at every meal, at least 30 to 40 grams. I'd hit plenty of fiber. That's going to be a big one. Don't drink your calories. Seriously, don't drink your calories. Switch to diet soda, whatever, zero soda, water, tea, decaf coffee, regular coffee. Just don't drink your calories. Now, you don't have to just go straight to drinking water. There's a good, better, best scale, but you're going to want to work on drinking more water, preferably half your body weight in ounces of water. So just use that as a rule of thumb. It's going to help you. I promise. I promise. I promise. It will help you. Moving your body, like honestly, hitting at least 7,500 steps and up shows a big reduce in all cause mortality. But not only that, it's going to get your body more active. It'll help you move through some of those emotions, some of that boredom you're feeling. Just move your body. Your body is meant to move. Move it in whatever capacity is available to you, but move it. Set a little reminder on your watch or on your phone. Schedule it into your calendar. Just have these movement breaks, and I promise you, it'll help with the snacking because you're going to be present in what you're doing. And also, yeah, that's the big part of that. You're going to be present in what you're doing. Another biggie would be uh, go to bed. Just fucking go to bed. Stop staying up late. If it's in your ability not to be up all hours of the night, go to bed. Get at least 6 hours of sleep per night. I'm talking six. Notice how I didn't say get 8 to 9. No, fuck it. I know. If you have kids, get at least 6 hours of sleep at night. No screens in bed. Get rid of that shit. I plug my phone in the kitchen and I leave it there. My wife's here, my kid's here, but I don't. That's me though. You have to find what works for you. But if you are staring at your screen in bed, you're not gonna fucking sleep. Get rid of that. Have some sort of bedtime routine for yourself. Stretch for a couple minutes. Read a book. Listen to an audio book. Put your phone on the opposite side of the room. Breathe, meditate, right? Take a hot shower. Do your thing, but give yourself that time so you can decompress, so you can understand, so you can relax a little bit more before getting into bed. That's going to be a big one. So hitting that protein, hitting fiber, uh, going for more walks, getting water into your body, that's a biggie. You could strength train, right? Strength training like 2 to 3 times a week. If you don't have a plan to follow and you want a plan, you can click below, check out some online coaching. I also have a ton of resources you could just click to check out on my website, articles of that nature. But you want to get started with that. That could be really helpful too. It's a nice way to deal with some of the stress and the anxiety and the frustrations you might have that might normally be taken out on snacks. It's also a nice way to build some muscle and to preserve muscle mass. All those things are important, but it also helps with the snacking, especially because usually when you make the choice to go exercise, the following choices after kind of fall into alignment with the person who identifies as someone who is into fitness, someone who cares about their nutrition, right? So that's just like kind of a little bit of a psychological thing, but it helps. And don't skip out on fruits and vegetables. Like, eat your fucking fruits and vegetables. You're a grown ass person. Eat fruits and vegetables. I don't care if you don't like the way they taste. Get at least 2 to 3 pieces of fruit and eat one big ass salad a day. Just start there. 2 to 3 pieces of fruit and one big ass salad a day. Just start there. See how you feel. Those are things that will help you stay full between meals. If we are prioritizing that short list, I guarantee you will start to feel full between meals. I also think you got to track. You got to do some form of tracking so you're aware of how much you are eating if you are convinced you're in a calorie deficit and you're not losing weight, and you find yourself snacking all the time. Write it down. You don't have to write the calories. You can literally just write down what time you're eating, what you were doing before you were eating, how you felt after eating, right? All these things are big because they're clues for you. So write it down. Tracking isn't inherently disordered, not at all. It's a helpful tool. Not everyone needs to look at the calories for everything, but I guarantee you it'll help you adjust portion sizes. It'll help you second guess making certain choices too. It's just very, very helpful. So look, I hope you found this to be useful, right? And if you have any other questions, you just comment below, because you're going to make sure that you're subscribed if you haven't at this point. They have notifications turned on, that you leave a comment below with any questions, you give it a thumb up, and you know, share it if you want to share it. I really, really appreciate you being here. And without further ado, I want to remind you, you're one day away from getting back on track and one day away from realizing how fucking amazing you are.